Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss War for the Planet of the Apes, starring Andy Serkis, Woody Harrelson, and Steve Zahn, and directed by Matt Reeves. Now, before I get into this movie, I have a couple things I have to say. One is how excited I was and how my viewing experiences were. I'll start with how excited I was. Now, this movie, I was so impressed with the last two films, and they made me an Apes fan, including those original films, and I'm really glad I went back and watched those movies again, because they were the greatest trilogies ever, and let's see if they pop them up again. And the second reason is because it's just a great movie, in my opinion. And the second thing I wanted to bring up was I saw this movie twice. And the first time I saw it was a triple feature marathon. And I saw that in 3D. I'll see what the difference was when I get into the movie. And then I saw it again regular at a Thursday night premiere show. So what did I think of the movie? Let's get into it, shall we? I love the 20th Century Fox opening logo where it feels like drums are being made, like being pounded while we're going to war or something like that for the Planet of the Apes. And I also think that the opening of this movie tells us it's been 12 years after Rise of the Planet of the Apes happened, and 2 years since the war between humans and apes started at the end of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. And they start with the war sequence between humans and apes is a great way to start the movie after how Dawn of the Planet of the Apes ended. Andy Serkis is back and better than ever as Caesar, and he does a great job in this movie. While they kidnap an ape who's with the human soldiers named Donkey, I think that's what they call him, the apes have a huge amount of apes while they capture soldiers, and I didn't expect Donkey or Bad Ape when I get to him speaking English or talking at all in this movie. And that is a fantastic choice after Caesar spoke in the first two movies. Even Maurice spoke briefly at the end of the movie when I get there. When we see Cornelia, aka Caesar's wife, played by Judy Greer, and his son Blue Eyes for only 5 minutes, because when the soldiers come in, they kill both Cornelia and Blue Eyes. Spoiler alert! But the good news is Caesar has another son now named Cornelius. Remember in the original film? Played by Roddy McDowall, but not in this movie. But he's a little one this time, a little ape. Anyways, and as a 1-year-old ape is actually really cute because he might be a baby or a 1-year-old, but at this point he still has his father until we get to the end, which I'll get to. The Colonel, played by Woody Harrelson, is the bastard who killed Cornelia and Blue Eyes, which made me sad, but is a good villain for the movie. The man can do much evil things like the killing I brought up earlier, and lets the apes starve, or if they don't do their work, he whips and kills them with Donkey. Another callback to another original Apes film, Nova, who is a little girl this time, and the little girl who plays her does a good job of playing a non-speaking human, which I heard that's a new thing. When they get sick and can't talk, I'll talk about that at the end of this. I'll talk about it at the end of the show when they no longer can talk, kind of like in the original film. Maurice is still a good sidekick in this movie, I feel like, and has a much bigger part as he hangs with around Nova. It's good. It's a good thing for a sequel that I still care about the characters. Toby Kebbell's Koba comes back only as a vision, by the way, folks. I said last week that he was coming back and had a brief part in it, but he only he does come back in a brief part, but not alive, but in a vision. which I thought was probably for the best after I saw Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. The first time I thought there's no way he's coming back into the movies. At this point, when we find 3 humans, 2 dead, but 1 barely alive and can't speak like Nova, we get introduced to Bad Ape, played by Steve Zahn, who, didn't I just see him recently in Diary of a Wimpy Kid, who came from a zoo, and we never see if... I first thought he was nuts because of how he's been hiding from the soldiers for a long time. I thought Steve Zahn does a pretty good job as an ape. I knew he could talk because of the trailers, but I didn't know going into the theater that he talked as much as he did while on screen. Nova and the apes have such a beautiful chemistry because she doesn't have anybody to love. And Caesar, Maurice, Rocket, and an unknown gorilla, I don't know his name, so sorry, were there to love her at this point in the movie. The poor unknown gorilla dies while he and Caesar try to look for the colonel, and suddenly some soldiers come and attack, and Rocket saves Caesar, but not the unknown gorilla, which I was sad when he died, and I thought, how many more apes need to die? Oh wait, there's probably more to go by the end of the film, but we'll talk about that later. But still very touching. Caesar gets captured by Donkey and the colonel, and they've had Cornelius as a prisoner, and I thought because he's saying he can't get tortured because he's so young he can't get tortured by Donkey and the colonel, which thank God they never showed that, because I would have hated the movie if I did. And the humans forcing the apes to work and can't get food or water, like I said a minute ago, was actually a really hard scene to look at, because especially when that happened in Egypt in real life, except the Egyptians didn't use apes. I believed Woody Harrelson's monologue about what happened to his son and why the other military people couldn't help his son, and then killed some of the other military men and women, and now they hate the colonel more than ever, and at the end of the movie they killed all of his men and destroyed his camp, and especially his wall. Maurice, Rocket, Nova, and Bad Ape find a way to have the apes escape from, and that is from underground. But first, Rocket has to get captured and help the other apes go underground, including the young apes. Rocket getting captured helps the movie quite a bit. Quickly to the apes escaping and Caesar trying to kill the colonel in the final action sequence. Nova saying apes together strong at the end is very good. Time for her to be an ape, even though she's human. So, can't blame her there. When I first saw this, I didn't expect Donkey to betray the humans for Caesar, because Caesar says he's an ape and might die if the colonel gets his wall, but instead he helps Caesar and then dies after that. A good way to care about the characters. After they destroy the camp and all the apes escape, almost kills Caesar until the mountain of snow lands and Caesar gets to the trees and makes it barely, is a good final piece of action for the end of the movie. I was really devastated when Caesar dies, because he was the best protagonist in this whole new Apes trilogy. Just made me really sad. I'm not gonna lie to you. I almost teared up. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 9.6 out of 10. This is neck and neck with the original film, but is still a fantastic Apes film for its recent times. Now, before I say see this movie, do not bring the kids to this movie, because it will be a little too intense for them, in my opinion. But whatever you do, go see this movie. I highly recommend it. So I would like to thank you guys for joining me for the Planet of the Apes retrospective. And until next time, I'd like to kiss you goodbye, but you're so damn ugly, to quote Charlton Heston from the first film.